Hello, Tampa Bay fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show, your online radio home for Tampa Bay sports talk and Rays postgame shows. Stay tuned throughout baseball season for live coverage after most Rays games with comprehensive coverage of all 162 games from April through October. Got something to say? We'd love to hear it. Give us a call, internationally toll-free. 877-566-1020 or send us a tweet at WHBC Official. Don't go anywhere. Tonight's program will be starting in just a couple of minutes.
HBC. In 2021, the Rays are the first MLB team to 40 wins. It is a good evening to you and how you be. William Haynes here, you there. Here at 11:12 on this Friday night. This Rays postgame edition of the William Haynes Show is live from the HBC studio in Clearwater, Florida. It was another win for the Rays, another win over the Orioles for Tampa Bay as they win by a score of 4-2. A little bit more comfortable than the score would suggest, though. I might add Yarbrough with his first win as a starting pitcher in Tropicana Field since on this day, June 11th of 2018. So as starter Ryan Yarbrough becomes to be more of a thing now, I think that is great that he's able to get that win, and the bullpen was as close to perfect really as you're going to get, as Kittredge, JP Fireeisen, and Pete Fairbanks had each a scoreless inning after Yarbrough's 6 of 2 runs, and held the Orioles over 9 innings to just 3 hits. After they scored in the third, they had just 1 hit the rest of the day, a bloop single and a couple of walks. So not only were they good, but over the back end of the game as well. So they were able to limit the damage and all those things. Not a whole lot of opportunities for Baltimore, and I think, quite frankly, this is how these kind of games really should be going into this series. I think the Rays, they need to at least win 2 out of the 3. I don't think no matter how bad a team is, I don't think you can ever go into a series demanding a sweep just by the nature of the sport. But if you can just win the series against teams like this that you're supposed to beat, Baltimore almost 20 games under 500 at 22-40. They have been absolutely abysmal this year as they sink seemingly even deeper and deeper into the cellar of Major League Baseball. So this is the 4th win in 4 tries over the Orioles this season. So as far as that's concerned, you would check that off as a sign of success. And I think this year, of course, evidenced by, I think they've won 21 of their last 25, something along those lines. They have been beating a lot of teams that they're supposed to beat. They find themselves now, the Rays, 15 games back over 500. They still have, it looks like at the moment, just a game lead over Boston for first place. So hopefully the Rays will still hold that when those two teams meet in the Trop next week. Or maybe it's the following week, and then we can maybe gain a little bit more distance. Who knows? That would be good to see. But back at the task of hands, I was there at the Trop. It was a fun environment on a Friday night, but as far as an incredibly eventful baseball game, I don't think that's how you would describe tonight's affair. Like I said, between the two, well, the Rays had 9 hits of their own, but Baltimore just 3 runs on 2 hits. There was some scoring early. Really, most of the scoring was done by the end of the 4th inning, save for the RBI single that scored Kiermaier from second in the 7th to add an insurance run that obviously was very good to have, and I think the Rays have been done a good job of that this year. Not only taking early leads, they've come back from a lot of deficits, even multiple times throughout a game, as they did on Wednesday night against the Nationals. But when you have a 1-run lead, it doesn't matter who it's against. Your opponent is bringing the tying run to the plate every at bat so that you can add an insurance run. Is spectacular. And Brandon Lau, of course, not to bury the lead, he gets a home run off of a left-handed pitcher, his 3rd of those this season. In 2021, Brandon Lau has 5 hits against left-handed pitching. 3 of them happen to be home runs. The other 2, of course, were in the same game in Dunedin against some not very good pitching. So I think really the theme there is that yes, they're lefties, but they're not very good. That's not why the home run was given up. He gave the lefty starter for Baltimore, Keegan Akin, a fastball middle in, which is the perfect pitch for Brandon Lau if you want to give up a home run. He was able to really just get those wrists pulled and that quick swing that generates so much power. And it was a towering fly ball that just kept carrying out, and it almost hit the Ray tank out there in right center. So, but really, what else is new from that perspective? It seems like this happens a lot where Brandon Lau is in a really, really tough stretch. He hits a home run or 2, has a big night, and then we think things are starting to get turned around, and then nothing really ends up changing. If anything, the good game ends up being really an isolated incident, looking back on it. And obviously we hope that that's not the case, as I think the Rays are mostly at their best when Brandon Lau is a valuable offensive piece, giving them some power, because that's really what he does best with the extra bases when he is really going. That swing that he put on that ball that came in the 4th inning to give them the 3-2 lead that they never looked back from. That's the swing that he has when things are really going well. We found out, I guess, after the game or maybe before the game that he and Rays hitting coach Chad Mottola were working on some things, some minor mechanical adjustments, and of course, over the course of a season, you're going to be making tweaks to the swing and all those things. So just one of those things, and we see that very often where a small adjustment like that is made, and then a big night follows. So obviously the hope is for Brandon Lau that we'll be seeing much more of that. 2 for 3 with a walk, getting his average back close to the Mendoza line right now at 194. So and he was batting, by the way, 6th in the lineup tonight. So I think certainly the decision to put him down towards the bottom of the order is the right one. That he's even in the lineup at all against lefties right now, I think, is a little bit surprising. So if you are going to have him in there, don't be having him hit cleanup or anything like that. Get the righties up there. So I would certainly agree with that. But if he continues to on this little stretch, put him back clean up lefties, righties, no matter. And that would mean that he's back to the player that he's really been his whole career going into the season. His righty-lefty splits have been pretty much equal. He's been good, obviously, against both. So, I think the last time I checked, he was batting some 060 against left-handed pitching, and again, only 5 hits all season. And, this is now we're done with game 64, and, we're in mid-June. So, this is a fairly large sample size, and that slump against lefties has brought his average as a total down under 200, which is never a good thing. And it's been a rough stretch for Brandon Lau, as I think Kevin Cash was saying on the post game. He's really been wearing kind of his heart on his sleeve throughout this whole thing. He's been very frustrated with himself, obviously taking responsibility for what's going on, but he's one of those guys that can be pretty hard on himself. So that, I think, at times can make it difficult to come out of a slump. But when he does, maybe, and he'll be firing on all cylinders. So, as we said, hopefully that continues to be the case. So, what we're going to do now is take a short break. When we return, we will continue more in depth of our discussion with tonight's Rays 4-2 lead. Number to call the show is 877-566-1020. Also taking your tweets at WHBC Official. We'll be back in a couple minutes. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the Rays postgame on the William Haynes Show. We're live most nights within 15 minutes of the final out to break down everything that happened in that day's game and take listener phone calls to get your thoughts. As always, you call the show at 877-566-1020 or tweet the show at WHBC Official. Like you to remember that archives of previous shows can be found on this show's page on Speaker.com and also on the WHBC YouTube channel. We look forward to having some of you on the show. Thanks for calling in.
HBC. And at 11:22, we return on the William Haynes Show. Again, number to call the show to talk Rays, 877-566-1020. Also taking your tweets at WHBC Official. We'll read your tweets on the air and respond, all that good stuff. But without further ado, tonight's 4-2 Rays win improves them to 40-24 in the season. Again, the first team in the majors to 40 wins. They're now 17-14 at home. Drops the American League East worst Orioles to 22-40. They're 11-19 on the road. And as it stands right now, Boston has won their last two games. They are just a game back of first place, which is the Rays. So it's getting closer and closer and closer. The Rays can't really afford to slip up, but I mean, it is June. And you would think at this point, right, that the Red Sox are going to come back down to earth, but they continue to play very well, and of course with the return of their manager Alex Cora and all those things, very, very excited for the weekday or the work weeks series against the Red Sox next week, and that'll be a great opportunity because we haven't seen them since the second series of the year in early April, and a lot has changed since then. So we'll save that discussion obviously for when that time comes, but for Baltimore, they are having a very rough season, and for the Rays, that you get to play 19 out of 162 against a team that really is not really competitive at all. Like I said, the 4-2 score is kind of deceptive. It really didn't feel that close. I think even when the Rays went down 2-0 after the Mancini homer in the third, no one really was worried. I think we all knew that the offense was going to get their turn to hit against some not very good pitching, and that ended up being the case. For the victorious Rays, it was 4 runs on 9 hits, 1 error that came, of course, on that controversial Ryan Yarbrough error, and there was a couple of those weird replay things for sure, I can tell you that. And then for the losing Orioles, just 2 runs on 3 hits, no errors for them either. The decisions, Ryan Yarbrough, this win brings him back over 500 at 4-3. 6 innings of 2 runs, none of them earned, of course. But, I mean, when it's the pitcher that commits the error, they probably should be earned. 6 strikeouts and no walks. It looked really, really good following up that complete game, not shutout, but 2 runs in the first complete game for the Rays in 5 years. His last time out, he had a full 7 days rest, so I guess you would say, an extra, or I guess on the 7th day, so I think he had a 2 extra days rest compared to, pitching every 5th day. So I think that move to move Glasnow back was not only for Tyler, but probably also for Yarbrough as well. There was only 79 pitches. He certainly could have probably come out for a 7th if they felt comfortable with that. But with the off day yesterday, I think the Rays felt most confident in going to their bullpen. And I guess you would say use the A bullpen with Kittredge, Fireisen, and Fairbanks. And maybe Fairbanks surpassing Castillo for the high leverage role. Who knows, as Fairbanks was really, really good here tonight. And as I mentioned near the opening of the show, for Ryan Yarbrough, this was his first win at the Trop as a starting pitcher for the first one since June 11th of 2018 on this day 3 years ago. So it's been an interesting ride for Yarbrough, and we waxed a little bit of poetic about him after that complete game performance against the Yankees, but has really been an unsung hero of this run that the Rays have been on, and I think in some ways history will remember him as one of the first as far as the opener, bulk man, really bullpenning as a whole in Major League Baseball. He was obviously the first one. Him and Sergio Romo, of course, will be forever tied together because that was the first opener tandem. Sergio Romo, taking the mound in the first, and Yarbrough, in the second, maybe through the 6th or 7th, depending on what kind of day he was having at that time. So, has been a bulk man even as recently as a few weeks ago. He goes back and forth, and I think now that we've seen him for a long time. This is his 4th season with the Rays, so we know him very well. I really don't think that the statistical splits between him as a starter and him as a reliever, I don't think that's the cause for it, as much as it may be easy to believe that. I really just think it's when he's throwing that cutter up and into right-handers is when he's at his best, and there's times where he doesn't have feel for that pitch, or sometimes he tries to go in, and the cutters don't really break, and they're kind of middle, and so then he just goes to curveballs and sliders and changeups away. But then they get dinked and dunked into right, shallow right for opposite field singles, and that's even happened a couple starts ago for Yarbrough. So when he's got that cutter working, and he did not throw it really a ton, at least it is how it seemed from my vantage point, but threw it just enough to let the hitters know that it was there, and then as well for Yarbrough. He was dictating the counts, the situations. He was in control really from start to finish. And when he's at his worst, when he's really struggling, it's he's starting off at bats with the slider, the curveball, the changeup away from the righty, taken for ball 1, maybe taken for ball 2, and then 2-0. Then you've got to start throwing him easy guaranteed strikes, and obviously that's when you start to give up a lot of hits in bunches. He's given up 9-10 hits in outings multiple times this season because of just that. The hitters are dictating the game to him. But tonight, establishing those cutters up and in, getting them for strikes. The curveball I thought was a really, really good pitch, just kind of locking guys up, and got a lot of swing and misses on the changeup. That was probably his best pitch tonight. He would start, kind of on the edges, on the corners, getting guys to take pitches, for strikes, and then they're kind of upset with themselves, and so, you get into 2 strike counts early, and then you can work further and further and further outside the strike zone to the point where it's a ball out of the hand, but you've got guys swinging at it because, again, you're dictating the game to them. So I think we're potentially witnessing a nice little run here for Yarbrough. Of course, the complete game being the best start really of his career, and he followed it up with a really strong showing on what was probably, I would imagine, some kind of pitch limit, again, through 79 pitches, and I think even if the score was different, they probably would have pulled him and maybe just gone to some lower leverage relievers, like maybe getting Sheriff some work before they sent him down, which they did end up doing after the game, of course, with the trade with the Giants to acquire Matt Whistler, which we will discuss towards the end of the program. But with the score being as close as it was and Yarbrough making his third turn through the rotation, I think ultimately they made the right move and no need really to push him, because he did throw, I think it was, 112 pitches against the Yankees in that complete game. So the Rays, they know what they're doing. They played this right. They gave him the 2 extra days of rest and did have 6 ups. That is still a clean or a genuine healthy start. And with the pitch count near 80, but I think, again, like I said, they made the right move to pull him when they did. Taking the loss was the Orioles, Keegan Akin, and I can't imagine that the Rays have handed a loss to too many starting left-handed pitchers this season, but they're able to do just that. Tonight gave Akin his first decision of the year. He's now 0-1. Over his 4 innings of work, gave up 3 runs, 3 walks, and 2 strikeouts. They were able to get him out of the game, I think, earlier, obviously, than Baltimore wanted. He threw 95 pitches by the end of that 4th inning, and so, of course, that was going to be it for him. There was some really long, good at-bats that the Rays were able to work. I think Margot had a 10-pitch at-bat. Brasso had a 10-pitch at-bat. I want to say Lau maybe had a 6 or 7 pitch at-bat of his own. And they weren't always coming away, getting on base out of those, but obviously that's going to shorten your outing pretty significantly. I mean, those 3 at-bats that I mentioned total up to almost 30 pitches, which, for most starters, that's about 2 innings of work that you shave off of his outing. Again, just by 3, at-bats that you're able to work fouling some stuff off. For Akin, not really a tremendous pitcher. He was working with the fastball that sat anywhere between 90 and 92 with not a whole ton of movement. If you really want to be honest, they probably could have done more damage against him, but 4 runs ended up being enough for the win tonight. And if they lose, maybe we're singing a different tune, but we don't even have to go there with that hypothetical, because the pitching really was so good. And, 3 runs over 4 innings against the starter, that is still a good job by the offense, and they were able to get into the Baltimore bullpen, which is always the ideology, and especially in the first game of a series like this, that you can get into their bullpen this early, although they did only have to throw 4 innings because, they trailing on the road, you only have to cover 8 innings. But I think you feel good. Even more so than you did before in the Saturday and Sunday contests, and where you will have Rich Hill and Josh Fleming, and so some pretty good pitching of your own going up against some starters for Baltimore that aren't very good, and some relievers maybe that have been a bit worked and that you've also seen. So I think that will work for a good combination. And collecting the save, his second of the season for Pete Fairbanks, worked a very clean, quick and easy 9th inning, getting the 4, 5, and 6 hitters quite easily, a strikeout in there as well. And he's been on a little bit of a roll lately and only threw 10 pitches in that inning as well. Got an ERA down to 1.2. So it is kind of hard to believe when you look at that he has been that good. It seems that he's always getting himself in some kind of jam, even late in games, with as little as a 1-run lead, and always manages to get out of it. But for a reliever like he does with a 3-pitch mix, a really good fastball that the guys just have a lot of trouble with, and then the curveball and the slider as well. And then he's even debuted in his last outing against Texas, I believe on Sunday, a cutter. So just taking a couple miles off the fastball, but has a lot more movement, horizontal movement to it, and is mainly thrown that away from lefties. But it's been an effective pitch. I believe he maybe threw it once tonight in the at-bat to the righty Austin Hayes, so that it can run maybe up and in, if that's the thought process there. So he's been very good, and like I said, it's too early to tell. I think it was just circumstantial and maybe matchups and those things, but I think if you ask maybe Kevin Cash, even he would admit, off the record perhaps, that he probably feels better about Fairbanks right now than he does with Castillo. If you're talking about a save situation, potentially in the ninth or whatever the Rays deem to be the highest leverage situation on that given night. So that might be something to watch out for. The bullpen is going to get shaken up a little bit with Matt Whistler, and we're going to have to wait and see on that. But it seems like that's a guy that the Rays are quite high on. And, of course, J.P. Feyereisen, who pitched tonight with another 2 walks, so that was a problem coming in. It's continued to be a problem, but they were thrusting him in safe situations. I think his second, if not his very first appearance with the Rays, was a safe spot. So a lot of guys vying for that kind of role, which always is really the case with the Rays. But I think Pete Fairbanks, if he continues to pitch like this, is going to find himself the de facto closer until perhaps the return of Nick Anderson, and maybe beyond that, depending on how Nick looks when he comes back and if Fairbanks has really, really established himself. So that's another thing I think that would be good to pay attention to. The starting lineup for the Rays tonight: defense first, in the outfield from left to right, it was Randy Arozarena in left, Kevin Kiermaier in center, Manuel Margot in right, and then in the infield from third to first, Mike Brasso at third, Taylor Walls at shortstop, Brandon Lau played second, Yandy Diaz at first base, Mike Zunino the catcher, and the designated hitter was Austin Meadows. Pretty typical standard lineup against a lefty starter. Margot in the leadoff spot. That's certainly going to be the case, especially against lefties, and I'm really enjoying what Margot is doing right now. Yandy Diaz batting towards the top, 0 for 3 with a walk, but with how he's looked lately, I think you need to keep him there, especially against lefties. Arozarena hitting cleanup. We talked about this last night, that he could potentially find himself back in the leadoff spot if he heats back up. As much as hitting cleanup could be a demotion, I think it is. But he's looked good, and a really hard hit ground ball that ended up being good for a base hit for a 1 for 4 night. So certainly he didn't disappoint either. Brasso, that's an interesting guy to talk about, and we'll get to him in a little bit. But that he's batting 5th against a lefty. He's hitted usually cleanup, so maybe one spot down with Randy in the order isn't too big a deal. But I'm just getting the vibes, the feelings. My intuition is telling me that Brasso could be potentially on the way out, maybe not leaving the team, but that he could be spending some time in AAA Durham. I know a lot of people have been calling for that, and I've been trying to put out that fire rather than fan the flames. But with Ji-Man Choi coming back as early as Sunday, but probably Monday in Chicago against the White Sox, they already sent Ryan. So they put Choi on the IL and they bring up Sheriff. So the conventional wisdom would tell you that Sheriff has the roster spot until Choi comes back, and you make that 1 for 1 again, just as you did before. But instead, with Matt Whistler, and maybe that's just something they weren't necessarily anticipating. And Whistler is out of minor league options, so you have to have him on the 26-man. And of course, in that spot, Ryan Sheriff is the obvious man to be sent down, so you do it. But now, when Choi comes back in a couple of days, what are you going to do, send down another pitcher? I don't think you would do that necessarily, although they are still rolling with the 3-man bench. So, 14 pitchers, 12 position players. If they want to get back to that 13-13 balance, which very well may be the case, then they would send down another pitcher. But looking at the roster right now, I really don't understand who that pitcher would be unless they're going to get rid of Michael Wacha. But outside of that, I really can't. Maybe they send Shane McClanahan down. But again, neither of those really make any sense. Jeffrey Springs, Colin McHugh, maybe guys that would be close to the fringe, if you could even say that. I don't even think McHugh, potentially Springs. But like I said, I think that's a little bit of a stretch. I don't think there's really anyone on the roster that should be getting sent down, but they're adamant about bringing Choi back up. So that leads me to believe that it's maybe just do a 1 for 1 to him for Brasso, because Brasso, a first base guy, but it can also play third, and he was very good at third base tonight, I must say. But they're already kind of dealing with a logjam in the infield. I mean, Yandy, a guy that can play first and third, and Wendell, a guy that can play third base. So you have guys that are needing to get time. So while the three-man bench is a little bit thin for some people's liking, I don't think. I mean, really, what is keeping Brasso really do for you? Because again, you're going to want to get Wendell some playing time, and when Choi comes back, he's kind of the everyday first baseman, and you also want to get Yandy playing time. So where does he fit into that as well? Not just at DH, but at third base. So I really think there is just it does become a logjam when Choi comes back, and I think really Mike Brasso could very well potentially be finding himself the odd man out in this situation. A 2-for-4 tonight with a couple of singles, including one that he tried to stretch into a double and was thrown out at second in a move that, if you ask me, I would have to say that was probably him stressing the issue a little bit. I mean, I think he understands the situation that he's in right now, and no one likes to be sent down. So I think he was maybe pressing a little bit in that spot. But that, I mean, that's the player he is. If he's able to get into second safely, instead I'm on the air saying, oh yeah, Mike Brasso, hustle guy, instead of just settling for the base hit, he went for it and ended up getting 2 bases, and how that changes an inning, all those things. But when you get thrown out, and it wasn't really all that close, it was cut off by the left fielder, and yes, it was a very good play by Austin Hayes, but that's not a play you should be trying to go to second on, personally. So all those things just lead me to believe that Brasso, and I don't think they're going to get rid of him, because how really as recently as Game 5 of the ALDS, that run to the World Series would not have been possible if not for Brasso, probably. So, and they have no incentive to really get rid of him. Wouldn't say that he's got probably a whole ton of trade value as an undrafted guy. He's not any type of prospect. I mean, he's probably a super utility guy. Can play first, second, third. He did shortstop in spring training. Is very good defensively, and can have some pop in his bat at times, and is supposed to be good, and I think has been pretty good on lefties this year. But Choi is coming back. That is a definite thing. I'm surprised that Choi didn't take longer on the injured list, but I guess the Rays really were telling the truth when they were saying it was just a kind of a minor issue that they wanted to give time to. So we will very diligently follow that. I think that's going to be the next kind of big move for the Rays to make, and they're going to have to make a tough decision. And here I could be saying all this, and there's a guy on the roster right now that they know they're going to trade or something like that, or they just send out one of the relievers, like maybe Springs. But in Springs, he's pitched to an ERA, under 4, so has not really been terrible. And Ryan Sheriff, another guy. Ryan Sheriff has shown you nothing that would lead you to send him down, but they feel awfully good about this Whistler guy from San Francisco, and so that's the move that they have to make. So this roster crunch is going to get very, very interesting. And then also about the lineup, Kiermaier in the 9th spot, I think is always has some pop, and Walls and Zunino, at the 7-8 against the lefty gives you some interesting stuff there as well. So for right now, where the team is, where all the players stand, a very typical lineup against a lefty starter, and I'm not sure that we're going to be seeing too many of those in the future. Against the White Sox, the Mariners down the line, there's always, one probably, a series, but hopefully get into a stretch seeing more righties, because it seems like that's when the Rays have a bit more success offensively. The way that, we talked about the defense and the batting order as well. So I guess now it would be good to go down 1 through 9 and talk about everyone's performance. Thankfully, they didn't all have 6 at-bats like they did the last game, so a little bit more quick and concise of a discussion, and there was not a whole lot of threats offensively tonight, I guess. They did score in 3 different innings. That was good. Going over the threats first, Margot and Diaz walked to open the game, so they had first and second, nobody out in the bottom half of the first inning, and Orioles starter Keegan Akin really wasn't showing any kind of ability to throw strikes, and then Meadows pops up and Randy grounds into a double play to put an early end to that scoring threat. They go down 1-2-3 in the second. Then in the third, they are able to score. Zunino and Kiermaier lead off the inning with singles to make it first and second with nobody out. And then Manuel Margot runs out a double play ball to score Zunino from third base. Also, interesting of note, there was a pitch in the dirt, just a wild pitch, and Zunino, typically not the kind of guy that you would want to do this, but did get a good early break and was able to get from second to third base, and the Rays probably would not have scored a run in that third inning if not. In a night where you win by 2, and really thanks to that insurance run that gave him a 2-run lead in the seventh, you're talking about a different ball game legitimately. So Mike Zunino, a guy that has always been likable even when the numbers have been bad, but I think especially right now is becoming in some ways kind of a fan favorite, and I'm definitely for that. I'm a big Mike Zunino guy, even though he's a Gator, but a UF grad. But I can excuse that if he's a good ball player, and Mike Zunino certainly is. And for Margot, kind of an unsung thing. Not only to run out the double play ball for one. There was no outs. So if he was thrown out, they still would have scored the run. But Margot, who I don't know if he's even run into any double plays this year. You would think probably at least one, but it seems, especially as of late, he's running them out. And as well, just to put the ball in play in that situation, of course, runners at the corners with nobody out. You got to at least get a run there. And with him, putting the ball on the ground, he gave them a chance, and with Zunino at third, because of the wild pitch and the good base running decision to get there, they are able to score a run, and just that as Yandy pops up and Meadows flies that with Margot on first base. But Margot, and that makes for a terrific leadoff hitter as well. I think Margot would make a good cleanup hitter. I like him in the 9 spot. He is kind of I feel weird saying this, but kind of a Brett Gardner type. Legitimately could hit anywhere in the order from 1 through 9, and you would see him in the card and go, oh yeah, I think that's a good call to have him there. Legitimately 1 through 9, anywhere he kind of fits in. In the leadoff spot can give you some juice to potentially open the game. Obviously, he's one of the best RBI men that the Rays have. Anywhere else at the top of the order, you would say the same thing. Middle of the order, a guy to get on base can give you some pop, somewhere in the middle, and then at the bottom as well, kind of the same as he can give you some juice down there, with those Zuninos and the Kiermaiers of the world. So, really, really like what Margot is doing, and I think like no one I've really ever seen can get pitches anywhere. It's going to result in some strikeouts, but I think his strikeout rate is probably lower than it should be with the kind of pitches that he goes digging for. But it can get kind of, it could be a baseball, maybe even 2 off the plate into the left-handed batter's box, and he's going the other way with a pretty hard hit single. It is kind of amazing. He can get pitches seemingly up at his eyes, down at his ankles. Really anywhere you throw the pitch, if he decides that he wants to make contact off of it, he's going to make, more times than not, good, solid contact. So, and he always seems to come up with men on base, as was the case here tonight. And he ended up having another RBI later in the 7th. So, you really feel good about what he's putting together right now. But back to the scoring threats that the Rays had. They score that run there in the 3rd. Then in the 4th, they threaten again and are able to get the runs across. Again, back-to-back singles to open the inning for Arozarena and Brasso. But Brasso was thrown out at second, trying to stretch a single into a double, and like we said, probably shouldn't have done that. So it was Arozarena at third with 1 out. So kind of a similar situation where you just want to get the man in, just like the inning before. Brandon Lau comes up, and as bad as he's been against left-handed pitching. I mean, the guys even on the radio were suggesting, considering putting down a bunt instead on a 1-2 count. He gets a fastball, does Lau kind of from this on ESPN. It's kind of middle, but it looked like it was middle in, and that's how everyone was kind of referring to it as. So, but at 91 from Akin, it's not a great pitch, and Lau really should be kind of doing this kind of damage to it. Off the bat, I did not really think it was going to be a home run. Again, I was there in the drop. It looked like it was just going to be a really, really high fly ball, because when balls go that high in the air, usually they stay in the park. But if anything, that's just a testament to how well struck it was, because it just kept carrying, and then all of a sudden, the outfielders have run out of real estate. They're standing at the wall, and the ball is going over their head. Just a couple of feet to the left, and it would have splashed down into the Ray tank, and the Rays, not the baseball team, but the literal animal Rays, who are there. This is just their third game back. They made their debut with the start of the homestand against the Nationals earlier this week. That would have been kind of fun to put the ball in there, although, I mean, you would hope none of those Stingrays get hurt if a ball goes in there. If anything, I guess maybe we should be thankful that Brandon Lau spared the life of a Stingray. But that aside, 420 feet to right center, and Lau was saying on the post game in his little Zoom spot, with Arozarena at third and less than 2 outs, it's just to put the ball in play. But when you get a pitch that easy to hit, you put a good swing on it, and that's exactly what Lau did. That sweet swing, and you can tell just watching him. I mean, how powerful it is for really kind of a little guy. How he can generate that much power. It's because of those arms and how quick he gets them around. I mean, he kind of twists his torso and then whips it back around, and again, the bat speed is really not like anything you've ever seen. And that was a 2-run shot that gave the Rays a lead. It was 2-1 Baltimore, made it 3-2 Rays, and as we said earlier, they never looked back. So that really did end up being the game-winning hit for Brandon. And really, as poor of a season as I think he's been having, mid-June, he's got 11 home runs. He's on pace for 25, 30 homers, which is, I assume, a career high for him, because he missed some time in 2019 and, of course, the shortened season last year. So Lau will be fine. Everything is going to be okay with that perspective, and really cool to see him have the night like he had tonight. And so that was in the fourth inning, and then the Rays didn't really have too much going, a 1-2-3 inning in the fifth. Then in the sixth, they hit back-to-back one-out singles for Brasso and Brandon Lau, but then Walsey and Zanino ended up striking out to end the inning. So a spot with runners in scoring position, yes, but the bottom of the order coming up and all those things, and so they're not able to get a run out of that. Then in the seventh, that's when they put up the insurance run. A leadoff double for Kevin Kiermaier and a hustle double. Unlike Brasso getting thrown out, he was actually able to make it in, but we've seen Kiermaier do that an awful lot. And so, runner at second with nobody out, you've got a great chance of bringing in a run. And it didn't take long. There was no sacrifice plays or bunt things required. Manny Margot, just an RBI single, boom. Kiermaier scores from second, and it's 4-2 Rays, and adds an insurance run for a bullpen that was really, really good. So, and Margot's able to get to second on a wild pitch, but Diaz, Meadows, and Arozarena all are retired. So they do end up leaving a man at second, and Brasso, or rather Margot actually was able to get to third base with one out, so they couldn't bring him in. And then in the eighth, one-out walk, and that ended up being it. So 1 through 9 now, talking about the hitters. Manuel Margot, 1 for 3 with 2 knocked in, a walk, no strikeouts. An average that's up to 240, an OBP of 281. Has been, like I said, can make contact with any kind of pitch. Is the best RBI man, I'm going to say it flat out, that the Rays have. He's the guy that I want in that situation over at really anyone else. Meadows, Lau, Yandy Diaz, anyone. Manny Margot is the guy that I want. and for good reason, as he's able to drive in a couple of runs in two different spots. That really was, along with Lau's homer, able to give the Rays a big boost tonight. We did kind of already discuss it when we talked about the scoring threats, but led off the game with a walk, which is not necessarily his style, but anytime you're able to do that to lead off a game is very valuable. And usually you score off of those, but the Rays didn't, but they came around later with enough runs. Certainly that fielder's choice where he ran out the double play ball in the third with a runner at third, less than 2 outs, got to put the ball in play, and he did just that and did drive in a run. Grounded out to start a 1-2-3 in the fifth, and then, of course, that RBI single to score Kiermaier from second. So it's definitely an eventful night for him. Yandy Diaz 0 for 3, a walk, a strikeout, maybe coming back down to earth, but it seems like he's due for at least one walk a game. He's on base 40% of his plate appearances, an average that's down to 259, but for him, still very good. And still seeing the line drives and things, was putting some powerful swings and did strike out once, but a guy that's got more walks than strikeouts goes 1-1 in that regard tonight. Walked after Margot in the first to make it first and second, nobody out. Popped up with Margot on first and 1 out in the third, struck out in a 1-2-3 in the fifth, and then grounded out with Margot, I believe, at second base to move him over to third in the seventh. So did move a base runner, I suppose, and did put the ball in play with men on base, which is a good thing as well, especially in scoring position. I mean, I guess a man at first, it's not all about putting the ball in play because that's where the double plays, but maybe an unsung night for Diaz. He did show some good things. And you're not going to be able to get 2 hits every night like he has been lately. But as long as the hard line drives are still there, I'm going to feel okay about everything with Yandy Diaz. Austin Meadows 0 for 4, no walks, a strikeout. An uneventful night, as maybe he's another guy that's coming back down to earth a little bit. I mean, his slugging still over 500, an average that's down at 233. Was coming up in some spots. I mean, popped up with first and second and nobody out in the first inning. Flew out with Margot on first in the third. Popped up in a 1-2-3 in the fifth. So, I mean, he's got the third highest fly ball rate of any hitter in Major League Baseball. I believe in balls put into play, 40% of them are fly balls, and I would assume that pop-ups are in that. 3 out of his 4 outs were in the air, and the fourth one was a strikeout with a man on third and 1 out in the seventh. So a situation where you do want to put the ball in play, and a ball in the air maybe does get a run in, and he's just all he's able to do is fan in that spot. So tough luck there, I suppose. Randy Arozarena was 1 for 4. The run scored scored from third on that home run by Lau, an average that's down to 261. So still very good, I think, for him, and on base at 343. So is working more walks than you would think for a guy with his approach at the plate. Grounded into a double play in the first, hit a leadoff single in the fourth, grounded out to start the sixth, and then grounded out with a man on third and 2 outs in the seventh. So was putting the ball in play, on the ground all 3 times. He did come to the plate as well in that hard kind of line drive. To get that leadoff single in the fourth. So that's good for Randy when he's not striking out and is putting good swings on balls. That will be good. Mike Brasso in the 5-hole, 2 for 4, no walks, 1 strikeout, an average that's up to 189, and on base at 265, so that's not particularly good either. And a guy that I suspect could be on his way out, at least off the active roster. That's what I would assume, maybe sometime in Durham. Popped up to start the second, hit that single with Arozarena at first and tried to stretch it into a double. It maybe looked like it was going into the gap when he decided to take the turn. I don't exactly know, but Haynes cut it off. So the balls like that don't go back to the wall, those are singles. So try to go for 2 and just got thrown out, and it was not even particularly close, as I said. It did move Randy to third, but runners at the corners would have been better, I suppose. Hit a 1-out single to get a little rally started there in the sixth, So, a couple good solid base hits and then struck out to start the 8th inning. So, I already said, obviously my piece on Brasso, and a good night. Certainly has given himself a chance here, potentially in the final hour right now. So, as I said, we'll eagerly kind of await Choi's return, not just because Choi will be back and it will be good for the team, but because of the corresponding move that will have to be made. Brandon Lau in the 6th spot, 2 for 3 with a run scored, 2 knocked in, a walk, a strikeout, average up to 194, and on base of 305, which is not bad for a guy that's been abysmal at the plate for a good portion of the season. Struck out a 1-2-3 in the 2nd, hit that 2-run bomb in the 4th, 1-out single in the 6th, and a 1-out walk in the 8th, so that he was able to actually walk against a lefty there in the 8th, and also steal a base in that situation. So really showing good things on all sides of the ball. The Rays did not turn to double play. Usually that's what I look for with Lau, because he's one of the best, probably in the league, at turning those over to first base, but is always very solid defensively. Taylor Walls 0 for 3 with a walk, a strikeout. Not really any super big spots for him. I mean, flew out in a 1-2-3 in the 2nd. Walked after the homer in the 4th. Did strike out with 1st and 2nd and 1 out in the 6th. And then struck out with Lau at second base in the 8th. So was 0 for 2 with runners in scoring position. Or just 0 for 1. So Lau must have still been at first base. He hadn't stolen second yet for Walsh. And this comes in his first game after Wednesday, where he hit his first career home run against the Washington Nationals. And we spent a good amount of time on Wednesday's show talking highly about Walls, and so I won't repeat all that stuff. But very valuable player defensively, very sound technique, fundamentals, and the switch hitter aspect is valuable to have. I think especially at the bottom of the order, makes it hard to match up against. So an average right now 231. This is, I think, his 18th game as a big leaguer, so still a very small sample size, but definitely enjoy watching him as a ball player. Zanino in the 8th spot, 1 for 4, a run scored, no walks, 2 strikeouts. Average, that's up to 203. It seems like that's kind of where his Big Z has been throughout his Rays career, but the 12 home runs I think that he's got right now is what's moving the needle. And RBI singles, I think he even had one on Wednesday, so is doing things much, much better at the plate. And again, had that terrific base running in the 3rd, where he's able to get from 2nd to 3rd on the wild pitch. That for a guy, of his large stature, and he's not incredibly light-footed, that he was able to get to 3rd, and the throw was a little bit close, but right off the, when the ball in the dirt, I saw Z running, and I felt pretty good about him getting in safe, and obviously he was able to do that. Also struck out looking in the kind of a weird call. Struck out with 1st and 2nd and 2 outs in the 6th, and then grounded out with Lau at second base in the 8th. So he does actually end up going 0 for 2 with runners in scoring position, but the team goes 2 for 11 in that category. So, to single any guy out, not necessary. Kevin Kiermaier in the 9th spot, 2 for 3 with a run scored, no walks, no strikeouts, average up to 215. Ground balls back up the middle. That's certainly good to see. That was the single in the 3rd. Put the ball on the ground for the final out of the 4th with a man on base, and then had that leadoff double in the 7th, and it was really just hacking and slashing. Kevin Kiermaier at his best at the plate. So if that can continue in that direction as well, it seems like he can always be a valuable contributor when he's doing just that, because he's a guy that is not maybe going to work good at bats, but if you throw the wrong pitch to him, he's going to punish you for it, because he's putting pretty big, maybe not putting good swings on every pitch, but putting big swings onto every pitch, and is making like hard contact. So, and is also incredibly speedy base runner. For most guys, what was his single, he was able to leg out for a double, and that allows a base hit from Margot to score him for an insurance run in the 8th, so or rather the 7th. So that's good to see. The lineup as a whole strikes out 8 times, walks 4, so that to me is a pretty good ratio. And with 9 hits on the night, 2 for 11 with runners in scoring position. As I said, Zunino, Meadows, Arozarena all 0 for 2, and then Yandy and Walsey were 0 for 1. Margot 1 for 2, and Lau, of course, 1 for 1 with that 2-run shot. They leave a total of 7 men on base, but that's going to happen most nights. Yarbrough, as we already said about him, 79 pitches, 56 strikes, so pounding the strike zone. 16 called strikes, 12 swinging strikes, and was getting more swing and miss than I think he usually gets. And 6 punch-outs over 6 innings is probably a bit high for him as well, but was really deceptive and really, as I said, dictating the game to the Orioles hitters. Kittredge with the sinker slider was really effective in his 1 inning, 8 pitches, 7 strikes. JP Feyereisen in his 1 inning of work walks a couple of men, and things were getting a little interesting there in the 8th inning with the two, or rather what was at that time, or no, it was a 4-2 lead at that time, excuse me. So did put the tying run at first, but was able to get out of his own mess as he got Santander to pop up with a couple of men on base. So the walks continue to be an issue for JP. 21 pitches, 11 strikes, and Seth called in a couple nights ago and was suggesting, or maybe not suggesting, but just bringing up as a possibility that the MLB cracking down on the foreign substances for the pitchers. If JP is one of those guys that is using it and obviously is no longer able to do so, that can affect control. It seems like his velocity is a little bit down from what it was initially for the Rays. I chalk that up to overuse, but velocity, spin rate, that's where the sticky stuff comes in. So just something to keep your mind on for JP, because, of course, he was not brought up with the Rays. So any outside practices that are going on, he spent most of his time in Milwaukee, but also was in the Yankees system. So you never know what's going on with these other teams. And then Pete Fairbanks with his second save of the year with a clean 9th inning, 10 pitches, 9 strikes, was pounding the strike zone, everything. The fastball, curveball, slider, and potentially maybe threw a cutter in there as well, which seems to be a new pitch that he's kind of debuted. So the bullpen was fantastic. 3 innings scoreless combined between them. And the 2 walks for JP were the only base runners allowed as Kittredge and Fairbanks, each 10 pitches, 8 pitches respectively. So very quick, easy innings, and is able to get Yarbs his first win as a starter in the Trop since 2018 on this day, June 11th, as it's now June 12th at 12:07. So as we put a wrap on the program, so that was tonight's win. Looking ahead to tomorrow's game at 4:10 at the Trop, I'm thinking I'll probably make my way over there and see Rich Hill pitch. The last time I saw him at the Trop, he went 8 innings, 13 strikeouts against Kansas City, so would be cool to see that again. It is going to be for Baltimore, the starting pitcher, Jorge Lopez, the 28-year-old right-hander, with a .530 earned run average, is 2-6 on the season. He's listed on ESPN as a reliever, but he's been a starter outright this season. Did not perform against the Rays. His last time out against Cleveland, 5 innings of 3 runs on 4 hits, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts. And the walks do seem to be an issue. 2 walkouts. So, his last few starts, 3 walks, 2, 4, 3, 2. So he's walking a fair amount every time, and the strikeout number, there's times he's walking more than he's striking guys out. So anytime that's the case, you should be doing pretty good. Just checking to see if he pitched against the Rays in 2020. He's been pitching since 2015, again, 28 years old. He did pitch against the Rays last season a couple times. One a relief outing, 1 inning scoreless, and then on September 19th of 2020, and he took the loss, 6 innings, 3 runs on 8 hits, 2 homers allowed. So just taking a peek maybe at that game just to see a Yoshi Tsutsugo home run. Oh my goodness. And Randy Arozarena also homered in that game. That's where the 3 runs came off of. So Yoshi is no longer here to play against Jorge Lopez, but Randy will be. So Randy also had a homer off of the guy that pitched today for Baltimore, Keegan Ack, and obviously was not able to get one out. So make of that, of course, what you will. Typical lineup against righties, bring out the lefties. I would imagine probably Phillips. They could go. They'll probably DH Meadows, so that would put Randy in left. Most likely Kiermaier in center, Phillips in right field. It'd probably give Manny Margot the day off, unless you wanted to put Margot in left and give Randy the day off, because I'd imagine you're going to want Meadows in there, and he probably gets the DH. And then Wendell at third, Walsey at short, Lau at second, Yandy at first. Maybe they go Mejia to catch. But for Rich Hill, who's been a bit better with Z, maybe that Zanino will be catching for him. And then, as I said, the DH probably going to Austin. And then for the Rays side of things, for the pitching, their starter will be Rich Hill. The 41-year-old left-hander is 5-2 on the year with a 3.05 earned run average. He's coming off of performance last month where he won the American, or I think just for the MLB Pitcher of the Month for the month of May. No, I take that back. It was. They did, because someone from San Francisco won the National League one. So he was, in the month of May, the American League Pitcher of the Month. And his last time out, it was against Texas and Arlington, 5 innings of no runs, 2 hits, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts, 59 pitches, 56 pitches over 5 scoreless the time before that. So, and then you go the time before that, it was that 8-inning, 13 strikeout performance where he threw 99 pitches. May 13th, May 20th, May 25th, 3 consecutive starts, 104 pitches, 90 pitches, 99 pitches. And then the 2 cents, 56 and 59, if that makes any sense, what I'm trying to articulate. He did have a start against Baltimore this year in Camden Yards in that 10-1 win. That was the afternoon game. He got the win, 6 innings, 1 run on 2 hits, 4 walks, 4 strikeouts. That was a season high in walks for him, but obviously with the 1 run over 6, was not really bothered by it too much. And with 6 base runners, 90 pitches over 6, so he was rather efficient. Was getting some early and count outs. So hopefully more of the same, and the bullpen is in good shape. Castillo will be good to go. I mean, everyone is, but guys that didn't pitch tonight: Castillo, Thompson. And then everyone's good to go on back-to-backs. Kittredge, JP, Fairbanks. So maybe Hill gets you 6. And Matt Whistler will be available, so they may get him some work. So let's say maybe Whistler pitches the 7th, Thompson the 8th, and maybe Castillo the 9th if they want to give him that spot. So, and then the final thing that we have to discuss, of course, is Matt Whistler. The Rays do acquire him from San Francisco earlier today before the game. He's a right-hander. The Rays gave up some cash considerations and one of their minor league left-handed starters, Michael Plasmeyer. Plasmeyer, the guy that they gave up, a solid starting pitching prospect according to MLB.com. He would have been eligible for the Rule 5 draft this offseason if he hadn't been added to the Rays 40-man, which the Rays were not going to do because they don't have any room on the 40-man. So basically what that's saying is he was just going to get picked up by another team in the Rule 5 draft, so at least get something for him. And Matt Whistler, a guy that they feel really high on. So he's been activated after the game. They send Sheriff down to AAA. Whistler, he's 28 years old. This season with the Giants, a 6.05 earned run average, 1.29 WHIP, which is walks and hits per inning pitched, so that's not good. Over a base runner an inning basically, and 19 1/3 over 21 outings. So basically just 1 inning outings pretty much every time on average. The Giants designated him for assignment, but he does not walk a lot of guys. He struck out 26 men this year with only 6 walks and a 95th percentile whiff rate, which means he's getting a lot of swing and miss stuff. Last year for the Twins, he was very, very good. In 18 outings, he threw 25 1/3, a 1.07 ERA, and a whip, not much lower at 115, but 35 strikeouts, 14 walks. So a guy that's going to pound the strike zone and also has a really good slider that they like. So I'm excited to see him. He's just a one-inning guy. That's what Cash said. That's all they're going to use him for. So, an older right-hander in the bullpen. I'm getting kind of some Chaz Rowe vibes. So, obviously you could see him in the game as early as tomorrow afternoon. So we look forward to that, and obviously we can give a much better report once we see him play. Especially for the Rays, because watching Giants film is not necessarily indicative, because it seems like the Rays always kind of change guys, pitchers especially. So he's going to be, probably a brand new guy whenever that time comes. And as I said, maybe tomorrow. I believe that if there's a good spot to get him in. Probably not super high leverage. Probably the first man out of the pen after Hill as well. And maybe, like I said, I'll try and get out there and maybe see him in person. Rays legend Matt Whistler to you in his first career appearance with the Rays. I'm calling it right now. But with that being said, we will be on the air not right after the game, but call it 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at WHBC Official. Follow this show on Spreaker.com on the show page where you're listening to it to make sure you get the show right when it goes live. I want to thank everyone for tuning into the program here as we are now on this early Saturday morning. Everyone tuning in from the Rays Reddit page, the Rays Discord server. I appreciate the continued support. We've had a fair amount of calls this week, and that's always good, and would love to hear from some of you guys out there. Saturday night, tomorrow night, 10 p.m. We'll talk about the game, preview the next day's game, all that good stuff. We'll see you then.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan.
HBC